Okay, I think we're live.
I think we're live.
Good morning, everyone. We are back today again. This is Carrie Cootie. I'm with Teresa McCoy, and we are back for day 2 of the Enneagram and Essential Oil series that we're doing. If you did not join us for yesterday's discussion, you're going to want to go back and listen to that, especially if you're not familiar with the Enneagram and you're like, what does that even mean? So you want to go back and watch the first video because we kind of did more of a deeper dive that we're going to do today into what the Enneagram is. So make sure you go back and watch that. It's saved on this page if you're watching the live video, or if you're listening to a podcast, it's the previous episode. So just make sure you go back and listen to that because he wants to give you some information about what this is so you can have some context going forward. But we're excited to be back and discussing yet another of the triads. We're talking about the harmony triad model when it comes to the Enneagram, which may be a tiny bit different for you, but I think you're really going to enjoy learning about the Enneagram in this way. And especially if you already know your number, you're going to really just be able to kind of see where you are and see where you want to go. I feel that's what it really gives me clarity and kind of the different areas that I might need to lean into more. So today we're going to talk about the harmony triad of the 2, the 5, and the 8. And I'm pretty excited about this because this is my triad. I'm a 5.
It is.
I'm definitely going to share some just insights I have in being a 5 and just how this has helped me in looking at this in the Enneagram in this way. So do you want to just dive right in? Just talk about some of these numbers?
Sure. And as Carrie said, we encourage you to go back. We've loved hearing from you. So if you have questions, comment. We're here on Carrie's page at A Natural Shift. And, feel free to comment below if you have questions from yesterday, if you go back and listen to the recording, or if you're, catching us live, comment and we'll hop right back on as soon as we're off. But, we've talked about that there are these 9 types, and Carrie mentioned the harmony triad. So what a harmony triad is, it is that you are connected to one of the types from each of the centers of intelligence. So the IQ center, which is where Carrie lands with her type 5, that's the intellectual, the EQ, which is the emotional, and the gut, which is the body. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with the body center of this harmony triad, Carrie. So let's start with the 8.
Yeah.
So the 8 many times is called the challenger, but I really like the word powerful because I think that's the gift that they bring to the world. So 8s pursue that justice and truth piece, and they really like for things to be under control. That's why sometimes they're called the challenger. Yeah. So they want to make big things happen, and they're not afraid of that big decision. They'll fight for the underdog, and many times they can be seen as confrontational or intimidating, in some of the other profiles, like a DISC profile. It's that high D type A personality. When they're in what we talked about yesterday, the authentic self, bringing their best self to the world the way they were created, they're confident and they're strong, they're resourceful, they're decision makers, and they're visionaries. Now, when they're kind of over on the edge, if you picture that Enneagram circle, I call it living out on the edge of the circle, kind of outside their authentic self, and they're adaptive, that's when they come across as that aggressive, confrontational, insensitive. They can be prone to access and weakness, and or they dislike weakness, and they can seem intimidating. And what I'm sharing from is a resource that we have. You and I have put together a resource where you can find it. We'll post it in the link here below in the comments. And you can go there and you can download this resource that we have that describe all 9 of the types by centers, and then also the resource that we have for the essential oils. So do you want to share about the oil that you've chosen that goes with the 8?
I would love to. It's called Arbor Vitae. And this is maybe one that you have not heard of before, but I absolutely love this oil. And I chose it for the 8 center because it really does help you to give more grace. It's called the oil of grace.
There we go.
sometimes I have a few eights in my life, and they are absolutely wonderful people. But, just like we can all need a little grace, right? And maybe eights need a little bit more just because they are so powerful. And sometimes they can turn that power around on themselves and maybe even become critical and over controlling. So I really I picked this oil because I find that it's very grounding. And sometimes eights really need that. They can kind of get just out there too much, right? They get into action too much, and they maybe need to come back and get a little bit grounded. And also, it really invites them to trust, because sometimes they can really take control of the situation and not trust other people or even trust their own instincts. And so I really chose this one because it does help you to kind of lean into that and to tap into that more of a surrendering posture, I would say, because sometimes if you want to be in control, it's super hard to surrender. So I know that's surrendering to God's will. And this helps me to do just that.
Yeah, many times the 8 is described as they walk into the room and want to know who has the power in the room and how can I get it. And so I think this oil of grace that you've chosen really does help an 8 to ground themselves as we go through all 3 of the types in that full circle motion into their 2 and into their 5, to learn to let me trust that who's present in the room is who's supposed to be in charge. And unless things are totally falling apart, I want to trust that this person has it. And I want to see first before I come in and take over and kind of control. So that's that movement from challenger to being powerful, but with a powerful present that gives grace. So I can't pronounce the oil, Carrie, but I love
the A word.
And we were talking about it yesterday because my daughter is also a 5, and we were actually making up the little roller bottles that we're going to talk about later. And she's like, how do you pronounce this? So it was fun. So, okay, we want to do the next one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then we're going to share a little bit because of knowing this harmony triad so well. So let's talk about the 2, which is the emotional center of this triad. So for a type 2, many times they're called the helper, but I really like the word of kind of what they bring to the world, how they were created in God's image is to be loving. So it's moving from not just being a helper, but being loving. So 2s want to be liked naturally, and they focus their attention on meeting the needs of others. So they're always looking for those cues of how could I help you? To what degree? How could I be appreciated for helping you? And then if they're not careful, they become resentful of that. And then they take advantage of it, and they forget that their needs matter. They're so busy serving and doing and over loving, overgoing, that they forget that they have needs. And so they can be seen as over helpful and smothering. So for a 2 to move from that helper to loving, it is in their authentic self. We know that they're warm and they're generous, that they're empathetic and supportive. But in that adaptive side, it's kind of prideful and even can feel manipulating. So it's, why are you helping me? What do you want out of this? They can feel clingy and possessive and angry. And so when we talk about these harmony triads, Carrie, remember that you have your home type, right? So for you, it's the 5, and then you're connected to this 8 and 2. And you can either be in the authentic side of that number or the adaptive side. So what's the oil that you think really is inviting for this heart center type 2?
Sure. And might I say, I love 2s. I really, it's interesting when you learn more about the Enneagram, and you can almost spot these people because they are so helpful and loving. And I love it. I just kind of, I can almost accept them and just see them more for who they are when I know that's where they're coming from, if that makes sense. But bergamot is what I chose for the 2. And this is the oil of self-acceptance. And sometimes it's hard, for a 2 to be self-accepting. And it's also hard to say no. And if you are more self-accepting and you do look at your needs more versus other people's needs all the time, you can say no. And I find that this number really has a hard time with that. They have a hard time with knowing that they need to take care of themselves versus other people, and to say no to everything because they do want to please. And so this oil really helps with that.
Yeah, I think you hit it dead on. I just loved it. Can you pronounce it again? What's it called?
Bergamot.
I just love to hear you say it. So.
It's hard for a Southerner to say that. I'm like, I don't know.
I love it. But that is so true. And I think I'm a 3, but I have a lot of 2. I sit between the 2 and 4. So I have wings to kind of both of those things on the Enneagram. And that 2 can move to, you always hear, oh, they can be so codependent and all of those things, but an authentic 2 that really is in true loving and knows how to be full circle with their 8 and their 5 is such a beautiful place. And I think you touched on something about the Enneagram that you and I both love. As you get to know all the types, and yes, you start seeing people that sit in these spaces and bring these things. You have empathy for people. Right. I think the Enneagram teaches you so much empathy instead of, well, you're that, and it's pointing the finger. It's more, I love you for who you are, and I want to bring that out in you. And I see these beautiful things that you could be, and I want to help you develop them. And I think we love that as we lead our teams, as we work with our clients, that seeing that. And so we see that in the 2 as well. Definitely. So you ready to talk about your 5?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Well, let's look at the head center, the IQ center of this Harmony Triad is the 5. So, and I mentioned earlier, my daughter's also a 5. So I've really loved this space, but 5s are investigators at heart. I mean, that's how they see the world, is information. Again, this IQ center, but it's moving from investigator to wisdom. And so 5's desire is to know things and know that they are capable. And so they'll gather a lot of information in order to master the subject matter that is at hand. And it doesn't matter. It could be a hobby. It could be their occupation. Doesn't matter what the subject matter is. So they love Google, right? Because you can Google anything and find out.
Right.
The inner world of ideas and analysis is safer sometimes, though, than their own emotions. So they, much like the 3 over in the heart center, but the 5 and the 3 are the most kind of disconnected from really being present to their emotions. And they have the ability, though, and this is the beautiful part, to see original possibilities and put them into steps and sequences very naturally. Do this first, do that next. So many times, we think of, and I know your background even in pharmacy, but we think of people that, invent things or come up with ideas. Many times they're 5s. But they can seem disconnected and distant from others. So authentically, they're objective and focused and curious and systematic and become experts in their field by nature. But in their adaptive place, they can feel like they're a little bit intellectually arrogant if they're not careful, because it's that hoarding of information and not sharing it out with the world. Because what if it's not right? So their fear, which is the IQ center is fear-based, is what if I don't have enough information? So I'll just kind of hoard it in. So that can feel cynical and negative, standoffish, and a little bit stingy. So what is the beautiful oil that you have for your type 5?
Yes. And you just described me pretty well.
Well, not anymore, because you're full circle.
That's right. You're so right. Okay. So Douglas-Fir is the oil I have chosen for 5. And if you've never smelled this oil, it has the best, just clean, fresh, almost sweet scent to it that you would think about a pine and a fir. But I know that some of you haven't smelled this, so I'm trying to describe it. It's just a wonderful scent. And this actually, all of these oils, I'm going to tell you how to use them. They make a wonderful blend as well when you put them together. But I chose the Douglas-Fir for a 5 because it really helps you to get out of your head. And I'm always in need of that. And it helps you to really share your wisdom with others, because that's where I feel that I've made the most strides is when I know I have a lot of wisdom, but sometimes I just don't share it. And so this encourages me to do that. It just helps open up your brain. So, I mean, sometimes there's just so many thoughts going on up here. And if you're in the headspace, you can definitely, it's not just a 5, right? It's the 6 and the 7. So we need a little bit of that. But it also allows you to release harmful patterns. And this for me has been really big because my personality, I just love a routine and I love doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm just like, I love that. But yet sometimes you get into harmful patterns. And so trying to release those can be hard if that's your personality. Good. So I really love this oil to help with all of that. And I mean, it just smells amazing too. So that doesn't hurt.
It does. And the blend that you were talking about of these 3, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but I love what you're saying there of, it's almost like yesterday, if you haven't listened to that with the 741, when we talked about peppermint and just kind of that hit of peppermint. Yeah. I feel the same way about the Douglas-Fir in this blend that you've put together. Is it just has that clarity that just kind of zaps you out of that space. I wish we had smell-o-vision. We're still waiting for them to invent that, right? We had smell-o-vision. So, when we were putting together this blend yesterday, I got the oils in and we were putting this together, and that Douglas-Fir just has that beautiful clarity that really opens up the mind and opens up the headspace. So because this is your home kind of triad, Carrie, with the 5, the 8, and the 2. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, because many people experience the Enneagram through what we call the process model, which has the arrows and can talk about, non-resourceful and resourceful and some of the other language that's different than what we're using here with the Harmony Triad.
Right.
So tell us, for you, what has been helpful to learn to live in all 3 centers of intelligence kind of full circle with your 5, your 2, and your 8?
Yeah. When I first came across this, I am always looking to understand. So it was frustrating to me when I took the test and I was like, this just doesn't seem right. And so thankfully I was connected with Teresa and she helped me understand things so much better. And for a 5, that's like everything. Like you just want to understand, and then you can like go take action or do whatever you need to do. But if you don't understand, you might hit a roadblock. So that really helped me. But also, like she said, with the Harmony Triad, it helped me realize that, what space as far as the 2 or the 8 that I could access really easily, which for me is the 8. And I'm really more of a driven in action person, but yet it was the 2 in my heart center that I had trouble connecting with. And as you mentioned, for a 5, sometimes we just tend to maybe be standoffish and to really be in our head. But really the missing piece for me was really diving into more of a relationships and not being standoffish. And if I heard, a conversation, or if somebody came to me and wanted my advice, I could share freely. And it wasn't, and 2, we're always looking to see as a 5, is this going to drain my energy?
That's so good.
We feel like we only have so much. And that's a really big deal for a 5. And so I've really learned over the last year that I've dug in deeper to the Enneagram. I've learned a lot that, God's going to give me as much energy as I need. And that really has allowed me to lean in more to my 2 side, because relationships, I used to look at them as very draining. And so I only had a few good friends, to be honest. And not that I have to be friends with everybody, but yet those relationships matter. And that's what connects us. And so now that I can lean into more of that, I definitely have seen so much more of just a fulfillment within. And I've seen relationships flourish, and I've been able to help where I probably wouldn't really have, maybe offered my help otherwise. So, you think of, obviously, I own my own business and I work with team members, but yet in all aspects of life, I feel like the Enneagram is so helpful, friends and family and spouses and, children. Obviously my kids are kind of young, and that's kind of a whole nother subject, but I don't know their numbers yet, but I can still bring my best self forward and be a better mom, and then when they do grow up, maybe I might know their numbers and can kind of work with that a little bit more. But I just feel like I'm a better person because of it.
That was so good. So if you're in the 852 harmony, rewind that a few minutes and listen to Carrie's growth and what she's experienced, because I think so many fives will relate to that, Carrie, or even, the twos and eights that we have that might be listening in of this harmony triad, because that five, as you said, you have a very successful business and you've done it really well, but to open up then to that two space of like, it's not going to drain me, that God is going to provide enough for me to have the energy and to learn to, manage your day and manage that energy and know that you can pull away, because the five is kind of more of that away energy.
And that's okay.
Pull away and it's okay. I don't need to feel guilty about it, because I'm going to have the energy when I need it, but to not hoard that information and that knowledge that you have and be giving and generous, that too generous heart. So thank you for sharing and being transparent and authentic in that, because I think that's helpful. Do we want to talk a little bit about, we mentioned it in the beginning, we have this free resource that you can download that'll give you the descriptions of all 9 of the types. It'll give you the blends for all of the oils. And I showed mine a little bit earlier. We have this, I just made this one up yesterday. This is my 369 blend that we'll talk about tomorrow. But do you want to talk a little bit about how you can use the oils, even once you kind of discover your type? What oil, we've talked about what would be good, but how can we use those?
Yeah. So I really wanted them to be able to be used individually. Say if, as a 5, if I just wanted to pull out Douglas-Fir and that was like the oil that just helped me come alive almost, I wanted you to be able to use them individually for your specific number. But also if you wanted to move more into, like for me, it probably would be the 2. So I could pull my bergamot out and use it during the day if I just felt something coming up, or if I just kind of had, more of needing to lean into one thing, you can kind of pull that out and go to those spaces more freely. So you can use them that way individually, or you could just use them in a diffuser blend. Like I actually have the diffuser blend in my diffuser going right now. It smells awesome. It's really, if you think about it, it's just going to help you live your best life every day. And it's just a great blend to have on, morning, noon, and night, whenever you would, want to kind of feel inspired and just kind of pull out all of those parts of yourself. Or you could use it topically. As Teresa mentioned, you can make it up in a empty roller bottle blend, or if you choose to work with Teresa, she's going to give you that for free.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
One more thing, when you use them individually, you could use them in a diffuser if you wanted to do that. What I find is probably the most helpful and what I normally do, I'll just take the cap off and I'll put 1 drop in my hand, and then I'll just rub them together and then inhale really, really deep a couple of times. And that's actually going to be great for just stress relief and just calming. And so it's a great practice to do without any oils, to be honest, but this just kind of takes you deeper in that. And then if you use your specific oil, it's going to take you deeper into your more authentic and best self. And so once you inhale it, you can also put it on the back of your neck. It's a great thing to do. And maybe just on your temples and forehead, just wakes you up and gets you right.
Oh, I love that. I love it. It makes me want to go grab one of my oils.
We should have done it together.
Television and all of that. But what Carrie mentioned is we so wanted to partner together to have you experience both the Enneagram and the essential oils. And we just love this. I love the body experience that this gives you with your smell, with your senses, with feeling the oil on your skin, with, having it kind of travel with you then for a little while after you put it on and you're still taking it in and the health benefits of it. But if you're a little bit not sure of your Enneagram type, one of the things I wanted to offer is I have an assessment that you can take that is really accurate, that can help you find your Enneagram type, and then hop on a call with me and we'll talk through it together. So I know we're going to post those links down below here in the chat and through some different things, but that's what Carrie and I did. And I think it's always important to talk through your Enneagram. Just like she said, sometimes in the beginning, it can be a little bit like, oh, I didn't want to be that type. Like that wasn't me. And it can feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure. I need to grow in this and I want to, and I see where I can. And I want to understand the other two places that I sit in the harmony triad. So love to have conversations with anyone about that and work together. And as Carrie said, when we do that, because of this partnership we've had, I'm going to give you a roller bottle of your blend and make sure that you know how to connect with Carrie for more information. And so we're just partnering together, which is another beautiful thing about, these types of businesses, and what we do is that we can support one another. So
we're just here to help.
Fun.
We're just here. We're
sure
showing up to help, right?
We sure are. We enjoy it. No matter what. So
it's fun for both of us. So thank you very much for joining us today. Be sure to go and check out the first video if you have not. And this is actually going to be a series of podcasts as well. So if you're listening to the podcast, we're so glad you're here as well, but you can look forward to that. So thanks for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow as well. We're going to cover the last harmony triad, which is the 3, 6, and the 9, which is Teresa's. So that'll be interesting to hear from her as well.
Yeah.
All right.
So
see you guys tomorrow.